Story, wise, idea, vision, witness, envy. 6 English words with nothing in common. Not a spelling, not a subject, not a tone. One of them is a bedtime word. One is a compliment. One is a sin. They are the same word, and the thing that joins them is not an idea. It is an eye opening. Here is the map with the answer taken out of it. 3 roads, 14 words, and underneath them, 1 syllable that has not been said out loud in about 5,000 years. The roads have no names yet, and the route is a question mark. That is deliberate. Look at the words first and see whether you can feel what sorts them. Start with the softest one, story. It is the word we hand to children. Tell me a story. The word comes with a promise attached that nothing in the next 10 minutes is required to be true. Hold on to that promise. It is the exact reverse of where the word came from. Wise, a word we give to old people and to owls and almost never to ourselves. It sounds like one of the oldest words in the language, and it is, though not for the reason you would guess. Wisdom in English was never a thing you thought your way to. It was a thing you saw. Idea, the most abstract noun we own. Whatever an idea is, it is invisible. No shape, no color, no location. It is the pure inside of a head. Which makes it strange that the Greeks built the word out of a verb meaning to look at something. Vision, the only one of the 6 still admitting what it is about. 2020 vision, a vision for the company, a prophet's vision. One word covering the plainest physical fact and the least physical experience a person can have, and it does not appear to notice the difference. Witness, a courtroom word. And the only one of the 6 that comes with a job description. You are a witness if you were there and your eyes were open. Everything the law is willing to do with the word rests on that one condition. And envy, the odd one out of feeling and not a nice one. There is no eye in envy, no knowledge in it, no story in it. It is a knot in the stomach. It is also, letter for letter, a description of one person looking at another. We will come back to it last. The root is wade. In proto-indo-european, reconstructed as wade, and it means to see. Not to watch, not to observe, to catch sight of and then, because for anyone standing in a field 5,000 years ago these were the same event, to know. That is the entire engine of this map. Every word on it is a moment of seeing that kept running after the seeing stopped. The first road went north, into the Germanic languages, and it let go of the eye almost immediately. By Old English, the verb witan already meant to know. But it is built on the same root as vision, and its oldest sense is the one you only get from having looked. Wise is the plainest survivor, Old English wise, from Proto-Germanic wisses, from a Proto-Indo-European form that means something close to seenness. That is the claim buried in the word. A wise person is not a clever person. A wise person has been present at more things than you have. It is why the word sits so badly on the young. There is no argument that gets you there. Witness is wit plus ness, the state of knowing. And look at what a court actually asks a witness for. Not their opinion, not their conclusion, their eyes. The word is a machine for turning sight into knowledge, and it was doing that job in Old English long before there were courtrooms to use it in. Wisdom is wise plus dom, the same ending as kingdom and freedom. A domain, a jurisdiction, an area under something's authority. So wisdom is not a quantity of knowledge. It is a territory, the ground a person's seeing has actually covered. Wizard is wise plus the ending ard. It is a medieval English invention, and for its first century, it had nothing to do with magic. It meant a philosopher, a sage, a person who knew things. The magic only shows up around 1500, the point at which knowing too much stops being respectable and starts being suspicious. It is one of the few words where you can watch a culture change, its mind in real time. And witty, the same wit again, from Proto-Germanic wittigas, knowing, clever. Which is a fair description of what wit is if you look at what actually makes a remark funny. Somebody noticed something half a second before everyone else in the room did. Wit is not intelligence. It is speed of sight. Thoreau, in Walden, drawing a line between two words. He could not have known he was drawing it inside one family. Wisdom came up through Germanic knowing from having seen. Prudence came through Latin from providere to see ahead. Same root, split 5,000 years earlier, arriving in a single English sentence to be told apart. The second road went south into Greek, and it did the opposite thing. It kept the picture. Where Germanic turned seeing into knowing, Greek turned seeing into the thing seen, the shape, the image, the account you bring back. Idea is Greek idea from the verb eidin to see. It meant the look of a thing, its visible form. Plato took that ordinary word and made it carry an entire invisible world, the perfect form standing behind every imperfect object, and the fingerprint never came off. When you say I see what you mean, you are speaking Greek. Story reaches English through French, from Latin historia, from Greek historia, which did not mean a tale. It meant an inquiry, a finding out, and the word for the person doing the finding out was hister, which means the one who knows from the same root. Wade. So a story, at the start, was not something you made up. It was what you came back with. History is the same Greek word borrowed a second time, later, and more carefully. Story and history are doublets, one word that walked into English twice and let the two copies divide the work. One copy took the true half, the other took everything else. And while we are here, history has nothing to do with his. That reading is an accident of English spelling, and a very recent one. The word was historia in Greek about 2,000 years before English had a spelling to have an accident with. Idol is Greek eidolon, a phantom, an image, an apparition. From eidos, form from the same root again, which sharpens what the word is actually accusing you of. An idol is not condemned for being a false god. It is condemned for being a picture, for stopping at the visible and asking to be worshipped there. Dickens, A Christmas Carol. Belle is ending her engagement to the young Scrooge, and he wants to know what has taken her place. Her answer is a golden one, and the Greek is working quietly underneath the scene. An eidolon is an image, and what Scrooge has fallen in love with is an image of a life. Of all the words available, Dickens chose the one that means the looking stopped too early. The third road is Latin, and it is the one that stayed literal the longest before it broke. Latin video, I see. It handed English something like 100 words, and almost all of them are still about the eye, except that the eye kept turning until it was pointed at people. Vision is Latin visio, the act of seeing. Straight through, unchanged, no metaphor applied at any point. It is the control word for this column. Everything else here is vision with something done to it. Visit is Latin visito, the frequentative of viso, to go and look. The frequentative means to do it over and over, which is a startlingly cold description of what visiting somebody is. Not to talk to them, not to help them, to go and put your eyes on them, and then to come back and do it again. Evidence is Latin evidentia, from evidens, outseeing, standing where it can be seen. The word does not mean proof, it means visibility, which is why a courtroom needs a witness and evidence at the same time. One of them is the eye, the other is the thing that let itself be looked at. Advice comes from Old French avies, worn down out of the phrase si est a vis. It is, to my view. So advice is not instruction. Historically, grammatically, it is a report of a viewing angle. This is how the thing looks from where I happen to be standing. Every piece of advice you have ever been given had that disclaimer built into it once. And envy, Latin invidia, from inviter, to look upon. But this in is the hostile one, the way it is in insult. Inviter is to look at someone against them. The Romans treated it as a kind of aiming, and some of them thought the look itself could damage whatever it landed on. That is why envy is the only word on this map with no seeing left showing. It got completely absorbed by what the seeing was for. Milton, Paradise Lost, Book 4. Satan has just discovered that one tree in the garden is forbidden, and he turns the accusation upward. Why would their Lord begrudge them knowledge? It is a verb there, and Milton means begrudge. But watch the position he is in while he says it. He is hidden, and he is looking. The envy he names in God is the thing he carried into the garden himself, and the Latin underneath is inviter, to look at someone against them. The word arrives in English, already knowing that a look can be an act. There is the whole map. One eye opening, 3 directions. North it became knowing, south it became the image and the account, and through Rome it stayed an eye and learned to aim. Now go back to the 6 words we started with. Story, of the 6, this is the one that looked like it had nothing to do with seeing. It came from historia, an inquiry, a finding out, and historia was built on hister, the man who knows because he was there. A story is the report of a witness. That is all it has ever been, and it arrived in English twice so that we could keep the true version and the told version in separate words. Wise, the same idea, taken by the other road. Germanic kept the verb witan, to know, and hung the adjective on it. The wise one is not the clever one or the trained one. The wise one is the one who has already looked. Idea, Greek eidin to see, and the noun is the shape a thing showed you. Plato took it up to name the perfect form standing behind every ordinary object, and even up there, at the most abstract word philosophy owns, what is underneath is a person looking at something. Vision, Latin viter, and the noun holds both halves at once, the act of seeing and the thing that was seen. Which is why one word can mean an eye test and a prophecy, and no English speaker ever notices the seam. Witness, wit plus ness, the state of knowing. A courtroom rests its entire weight on that equation. A person who saw is a person who knows. English had settled the argument in a single word long before anyone built the room to argue it in. Witness and wise are the same claim, one made about a moment and one made about a life. And envy, the one that looks like a feeling and is actually a posture, a face, turned toward someone, holding a look half a second too long. The root is still taking work, by the way. In 1900, somebody needed a word for seeing at a distance, took the Greek for far and the Latin for sight, and built television. 5,000 years, and that syllable is still being handed the same job. Every time you tell someone you see what they mean, you are using a word that once meant nothing but the eye. Every word on that map is in the dictionary at verbalt.com, with its level, its definition, and the sentences it actually appears in. This is Root Atlas, one root at a time until the map is finished.